Everyone talks about harmony like it pro TM's agreement, peace, everyone getting along. Confucius saw something completely different. 551 BCE in the state of Lu, a philosopher walks into chaos, warlords carving up the Zhou dynasty, nobles backstabbing each other for land, common people starving while elites feast. And this man, Confucius, starts teaching a concept that sounds soft but cuts like steel. Harmony is now TM'd sameness. Ito TM's tension, creative tension, the kind that holds a bridge up or makes music worth hearing. Most people miss this. They think Confucius wanted everyone nodding in agreement, bowing, staying quiet. Dead wrong. He said the opposite. Analects 1323, Hier Butong, harmony with distinctiveness. The superior person harmonizes but does not conform. The small person conforms but does not harmonize. 6 words in Chinese that flip the entire script. Yua Stao Tm Pri about to see how one man in northern China 25 centuries ago understood social physics better than most modern theorists, and why this matters right now. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from Chenyang Liao Ro TM's The Confucian Philosophy of Harmony, published by Routledge in 2015, which synthesizes classical texts, including the Analects, the Zuozhuan, and the Doctrine of the Mean, alongside research from Philosophy Compass, published May 2008, analyzing harmony in classical Confucianism. These are not TMT popular summaries. These are deep academic treatments cross-referencing original Chinese texts with archaeological evidence. Now back to the information. The Analects say at 70, he could follow his heart. TM's desire without breaking rules. That ta, TM's not compliance. That taos, TM's integration. The man spent his life watching his society tear itself apart. The spring and autumn period, 770 to 476 BCE. Regional states fighting. The Zhou king, a figurehead. Lu state, where Confucius lived, was controlled by 3 families, the Ji, Meng, and Shu clans. 505 BCE, Yang Hu, a retainer of the Ji family, launches a rebellion and seizes power. By summer, 501 BCE, the families expel him. Confucius, by then, has a reputation. They appoint him governor of a town, eventually minister of crime. The Zunzi says he ordered the execution of Shaozheng Mao, a rival scholar whose lectures attracted disciples. Confucius was not so TM soft. He understood power. He also understood something the warlords did not route TMT. Force creates uniformity. Uniformity is not TM harmony. Musical response. The Yijing, Book of Changes, states a crane sings in the woods and its baby birds respond. He, respond, not echo, respond, different notes creating a pattern. The Zuozhuan, a historical commentary covering 722 to 468 BCE, records something crucial. Around 500 BCE, a minister named Yanzi, also called Yan Ying, explains harmony to a duke. The passage is in the Zuozhuan, chapter Shaogong 20. Yanzi says harmony is like making soup. You need water, fire, vinegar, sauce, salt, and plum to cook fish and meat. You cook them with firewood, mingle them together to balance the taste, compensate for deficiencies, and reduce excessiveness. The good person eats such balanced food to purify his heart. Then Yanzi shifts to music. Harmony in music uses different sounds. You have high and low, long and short, fast and slow, sad and happy, emerging and stopping. All these differences create harmony. He says one sound alone is not music. One flavor alone is not taste. Then comes the knife twist. Yanzi says uniformity is different. If you only use water to flavor water, who can eat it? If you only play one note repeatedly on a zither, who can listen? This is what the sage kings understood. They harmonized 5 flavors, 6 measures of sound, 7 principles of governing, 8 kinds of officials, 9 virtues, and so achieved the highest harmony. His disciple Yuzi says practicing ritual has harmony as its key value. This is the beauty of the way of the ancient kings. But he immediately adds a warning. If you only seek harmony for harmony's sake without regulating it with ritual, this will not attempt to work either. There attempts the tension. Harmony requires difference but also structure. Ritual, Lai in Chinese, provides the structure. But ritual without the understanding of why creates dead conformity. Confucius is building a system where individuals maintain distinctiveness while creating collective patterns. It all what TMs like jazz. Every player has freedom but knows the changes. When it works, you get music. When it fails, you get noise or everyone playing in unison like robots. The inferior person conforms but does not harmonize. In Chinese, Junzi he erbu tong, xiaoren tong erbu he. Break this down, he means harmonize, respond, create patterns with difference. Tong means sameness, uniformity, agreement without thought. Bu means not. Means but. The superior person, Junzi, creates harmony through maintaining distinctiveness. The inferior person, Xiaoren, creates sameness by eliminating distinctiveness. These are in a TM'd. Just different approaches. They, TM, re opposites. One builds, one destroys. Confucius saw conformity as social death. A kingdom where everyone agrees is a kingdom about to collapse because no one can see problems coming. No one challenges bad ideas. No one brings new solutions. The ruler surrounds himself with yes-men. Disaster follows. History proved him right repeatedly. The state of Qi grows jealous of Lu, Stat, Chiu's, TM's success under Confucius, TM's influence. A Qi official sends dancing girls and fine horses to Duke Ding of Lu. The Duke abandons his duties. Confucius, disgusted, leaves Lu State. He spends the next 14 years traveling. He visits Wei, Chen, Kai, Chu. In 500 BCE, he nearly dies when people mistake him for someone else and surround him. His disciple Zilu wants to fight. Confucius stops him. Clears the confusion. Survives. 484 BCE. Almost 70 years old, Ha TM's invited back to Lu. They honor him, but give him no real position. He focuses on teaching and compiling texts. 479 BCE, he dies in Khufu. By then, he has 72 core disciples. The traditional count says 3,000 students total studied under him. His grandson, Zisi, and later scholars like Mencius and Sunzi spread his ideas. They all grapple with the harmony problem. How do you build a functional society that maintains individual distinctiveness? Centrality is the great root of the world. Harmony is the universal path. When centrality and harmony are achieved, heaven and earth take their proper places, and all things flourish. Notice the structure. Centrality, Zhong, is the root. It also TMs, not absence of emotion. It out TMs, the state before reaction, where you have full potential. Harmony, He, is what happens when emotions emerge appropriately. Not suppressed, not wild, expressed in proportion. A person insults you. Suppressing anger completely is dishonest. Exploding is destructive. The appropriate response depends on context, relationship, intent, harm done. The doctrine of the mean says the superior person is cautious when alone, watches themselves constantly because the slightest deviation from center creates cascading imbalance. This is not urars, TM'd moral rigidity. It as obas, TM's situational precision. Mencius, 372 to 289 BCE, pushes the harmony concept into politics. He talks about the support of the people. His term is something like benevolent government creating interpersonal harmony. He says the time, place, and human harmony must align. Battle example. He says the benefits of timely opportunities cannot compare to the advantages of favorable terrain. The advantages of favorable terrain cannot compare to the harmony among people. You can have perfect timing and perfect position, but if your soldiers don't believe in the cause, you lose. Harmony among people trumps everything. But how do you create that harmony? Not through force, through righteousness, through leaders who genuinely care about welfare. Mencius believed human nature was innately good. People have natural compassion, shame, respect, and moral sense. A leader who appeals to these creates genuine harmony. A tyrant who demands conformity through threat creates brittle structure that shatters under pressure. But here oppressed TMs, where it gets interesting. Zunzi says harmony comes from proper division of roles and responsibilities. Chapter 9 of the Zunzi. He talks about social hierarchy, the division between noble and simple, rich and poor, men and women, old and young. Sounds terrible to modern ears. But his point is functional. He says if everyone tries to do everything, nothing gets done. If no one knows their responsibilities, coordination fails. Harmony requires differentiation of function. But, and this is crucial, differentiation of function deus natiamas means suppression of individuals. The skilled musician plays their instrument. The skilled general leads troops. The skilled farmer cultivates land. Each brings expertise. Each contributes uniquely. Together, they create something no individual could achieve. That tasks are arousing TM's harmony through distinctiveness. The Liji, Book of Rites, compiled 1st century BCE, has a chapter Li Yun. It says when father and son are dedicated in relationship, brothers accord in feeling and action, and husband and wife are in harmony, the family thrives. 3 relationships, 6 people minimum. Each person has a role but also agency. The father guides but listens. The son respects but thinks. Brothers support but challenge each other. Partners balance each other. Confucian texts stress this repeatedly. The Analects, the Mencius, the doctrine of the mean, family harmony is now TMEM, everyone agreeing. Heterotemes, everyone contributing their perspective while working toward shared goals. Yanji Tui, 531 to 590. CE writes Yana TM's Family Teachings. Chapter 3. He says, when there are people, there are husbands and wives. When there are husbands and wives, there are fathers and sons. When there are fathers and sons, there are brothers. The family tie is these three relationships. All kinship extends from this. The harmony and prosperity of the family rely on these three relationships. Each relationship is asymmetric in authority, but symmetric in importance. You remove one leg of a tripod, it falls. Li Ji records a conversation between Confucius and King Aigong of Lu State. The king asks, what is the most important human affair? Confucius says, governance. The king asks, what is governance about? Confucius answers, governance is about setting things right. The second zheng means correct, upright. How do you govern a state? Confucius promotes governing with ritual propriety, lie, and governing with virtue. Analects 2, verse 1. He says, govern with virtue, and the people will be like stars that revolve around the pole star. Lead by decree and penal law, and people will evade you and feel no shame. Lead by virtue and ritual, and people will have shame and correct themselves. This is harmony at scale. A ruler who forces conformity creates resentment. A ruler who embodies principles creates aspiration. People harmonize, not because Tim Yangs were afraid, but because they see value. Correct music used instruments correlating to 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Each element produced specific tones. When played together properly, they harmonized with natural order. The text says music reaches harmony when 5 sounds are harmonized and 8 streams of air are balanced. The term ping here parallels he. Both mean achieving right relationship among differences. The Zhou concept said, when music harmonizes, heaven and earth align, seasons regulate, crops grow. This sounds like magical thinking until you recognize the underlying principle. Complex systems require coordinated differentiation. Nature works through diversity and relationship. Monoculture fails, biodiversity thrives. At the commencement of the piece, all parts should sound together. As it proceeds, they should be in harmony while severally distinct and flowing without break. Thus, on to conclusion. Notice the progression. Unity at start, differentiation in middle, integration throughout, never uniformity. Always distinctive voices creating pattern. This is social technology hidden in aesthetic teaching. If you can teach people to make music this way, they can run organizations this way, govern nations this way, live lives this way. When human social patterns mirror natural patterns, differentiation, creating integration, diversity enabling stability, everything aligns. When humans try to force uniformity, they create friction with natural order. They exhaust themselves, maintaining artificial structures. They collapse. Diverse groups argue more, but catch errors others miss, generate solutions no individual conceived. The friction is the feature, not the bug. Evolution uses the same principle. Sexual reproduction is costly, risky, slow compared to cloning. But it generates variation, which enables adaptation, which enables survival. Ecosystems maintain multiple species, competing and cooperating. Remove diversity, the system crashes. Confucius saw this 2,500 years ago without microscopes or experiments. He saw it by watching what worked and what failed. Confucius is almost 70 at this point. He wore out TMs watching his world collapse, nobles fighting, common people suffering, and Heao Bao's TMs still trying to explain harmony. Why? Because he understood something everyone else missed. The alternative to harmony is not TM.T chaos, it's our TM's conformity, and conformity is slower death. He orders the ox spared and a sheep substituted. People mock him. They say he TM's cheap, trading expensive ox for cheap sheep. Mencius explains differently. The king saw the ox. He felt immediate compassion. He did not see the sheep, so he did not feel the same. But that impulse, the sudden compassion, that TM's the seed of benevolence, the king just needs to extend it, see all suffering, feel all compassion, then govern accordingly. Mencius says this is the beginning of harmony. Not calculated policy, not enforced order. Genuine care extended systematically. When people feel cared for, they harmonize naturally. Over time, the patterns internalize. The person becomes good not because their nature changed, but because their habits shaped them. Itaotiemens behavioral modification at civilization scale. Both Mencius and Zunzi agree on the goal: harmony through maintained distinctiveness. They disagree on whether human nature is ally or obstacle, but both reject conformity as solution. The Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, makes Confucianism state ideology. This could have destroyed the whole system. When philosophy becomes propaganda, it usually loses teeth. But something interesting happens. Dongzhongshu, 179 to 104 BCE, synthesizes Confucianism with cosmology and yin-yang theory. He writes on the harmony of heaven and earth. He says, "Harmony is that by which heaven and earth generate the myriad things. Those who sincerely pursue harmony truly understand the way." He extends musical harmony to cosmic harmony. Heaven represents yang energy. Earth represents yin energy. Proper governance harmonizes the two. Excessive yang, too much activity, heat, aggression, causes drought, fire, war. Excessive yin, too much passivity, cold, withdrawal, causes flood, ice, stagnation. The ruler must maintain balance, not through magic, through policy. Agricultural cycles, tax rates, military deployment, judicial leniency or severity, all these adjust the social energy. Harmony emerges from dynamic balance, not static equilibrium. He compiles the 4 books: Analects, Mencius, Great Learning, Doctrine of the Mean. These become standard curriculum for civil service exams. For 600 years, every Chinese official studies these texts, including the harmony concepts. Critics say this created authoritarian conformity. Look closer. The exams tested ability to analyze, argue, apply principles to situations. Yes, you had to master orthodox interpretations. But mastery meant demonstrating sophisticated understanding of how distinctiveness creates harmony, how ritual structures freedom, how individual cultivation enables collective flourishing. The best scholars didn't TMT just repeat, they synthesized. When they emerge in due measure, this is harmony. This is the universal path. Centrality and harmony achieved, heaven and earth align, all things flourish. Zhu Xi adds commentary. He says centrality is not absence, but potential, like drawn bowstring before release, like musician before striking note. The energy is there, focused, ready. When it releases appropriately, you get harmony. When it releases prematurely or excessively, you get discord. The goal is not to never feel. The goal is to feel accurately, respond proportionally, maintain center through motion. Market shifts, company Kene Oro TMT adapt. Competitors eat them alive. Company B cultivates harmony. They hire diverse perspectives. They create structured spaces for debate. They establish clear goals but flexible methods. Meetings get messy. People argue. But someone catches the flaw in the plan. Someone suggests the pivot that saves the quarter. The company adapts, survives, thrives. That our Sayo TM's Confucian harmony in action. Distinctiveness within structure, creating resilient patterns. When it fails, you get either tyranny, one faction crushes others, creates uniformity, or chaos. No structure, just competing factions, nothing gets done. Confucius would recognize both failures. The harmony principle predicts them. The theory was you maintain national sovereignty, distinctiveness, while creating frameworks for cooperation, harmony. When nations follow the framework, conflicts reduce, prosperity increases. When nations ignore the framework, wars erupt. The Chinese government in 21st century explicitly promotes harmonious society and harmonious world as policy goals. Whether they achieve genuine harmony or enforce conformity is debated. The test is simple. Do diverse voices exist and contribute? Or do all voices echo the same line? Confucius gave us the metric, harmony versus conformity. He erbu tong versus tong erbu he. Reality often falls between, but the distinction remains clear. You notice when anger starts disproportionate to cause, when fear exceeds actual danger, when desire detaches from need, you correct before acting. This is not suppression, this is precision. Archers train for years to hit bullet TM's eyes consistently. Musicians practice scales daily to play complex pieces naturally. Athletes drill movements until execution becomes instinctive. Why wouldn't a TMOT, emotional and moral precision, require similar training? Confucius, at 70, said he could follow TM's desire without transgressing what is right. That TM is mastery. Desire and rightness aligned. No conflict between want and should. The person reached integration where distinct impulses harmonize automatically. This is na TMT superhuman. Ita TMs, the result of decades practicing the mean, adjusting constantly, learning from errors, refining responses. Anyone can start. Few persist long enough to complete, but the path exists. Family patriarchs used it to justify abuse, but original texts resist this. Confucius says leaders must follow Li in dealing with subordinates. Mencius advocates human dignity strongly. He says heaven sees as the people see. Heaven hears as the people hear. A ruler who harms people loses heaven, or TM's mandate. Revolution becomes righteous. The Mencius explicitly justifies overthrowing tyrants. That our TM's not authoritarian ideology. That our TM's accountability doctrine. Rights protect the space for distinctiveness. Harmony provides the goal for that distinctiveness, contributing to larger patterns. You need both. Rights without harmony create isolated atoms. Harmony without rights creates forced conformity. Together, they enable flourishing. The term loses meaning, but this misses the test Confucius built in. He erbu tong, harmony with distinctiveness. You can assess any situation empirically. Do diverse voices exist? Do they contribute meaningfully? Does the pattern incorporate difference or eliminate it? If someone sought TM as a version of harmony requires everyone agreeing, everyone conforming, everyone staying silent, that to us TM's not harmony. That is the TM's uniformity. The person fails Confucius or TM's test. The concept remains rigorous if you apply it rigorously. Organizational behavior demonstrates them. Confucius articulated them early using his cultural vocabulary: ritual, music, family, state. But the underlying physics applies everywhere. A Japanese jazz ensemble and a Brazilian soccer team and a Swiss precision engineering firm all depend on harmony through distinctiveness. They would TM use Confucian language. They embody Confucian principles. 500 BCE, water, fire, vinegar, sauce, salt, plum, fish, meat, firewood. 9 ingredients, minimum. Remove anyone, the soup fails. Use only one, you can about him to eat it. The harmony emerges from combining distinct elements in proper proportions. Not random, not uniform. Structured diversity, that TM's culinary technology, that TM's social technology, that TM's universal technology. Confucius spent his life teaching this to students who would disperse across China and eventually across East Asia, carrying texts and ideas that would shape civilizations. But within centuries, his ideas become foundational. By Han Dynasty, Confucianism is state ideology. By Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, temples to Confucius exist in every administrative capital. Students recite the Analects. Officials base policy on his principles. Korea, Japan, Vietnam adopt Confucian frameworks. The ideas spread because they worked. Not perfectly. Nothing works perfectly. But better than alternatives. 20th century brings attacks. May 4th movement, 1919. Chinese intellectuals blame Confucianism for China. TM as weakness against Western powers. Too conservative. Too hierarchical. Prevents progress. Communists agree. Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 76, actively destroys Confucian heritage. Temples burned, texts banned, scholars persecuted, but ideas persist underground. By 1980s, rehabilitation begins. 21st century, explicit revival. China, out TM's government promotes Confucian values again. Academics worldwide study Confucian philosophy seriously. Why the resilience? How do you build institutions that adapt without losing coherence? Every society faces these. Every organization faces these. Every person faces these. Confucius provided a framework, not a solution, a framework. The insight that harmony requires difference, that uniformity creates brittleness, that integration must preserve distinctiveness or it fails. This is timeless because the underlying dynamics are timeless. Recent scholarship deepens understanding. Chen Yang Liao, T.M.'s. The Confucian Philosophy of Harmony, published 2015 by Routledge, traces harmony concept from ancient texts through modern applications. Lee argues, Western misinterpretation sees Confucian harmony as passive adjustment, everyone fitting into predetermined cosmic order. He shows this is completely wrong. Confucian harmony is active, creative, dynamic. Tao TM's process, not state. Tao TM as constant adjustment, not fixed structure. The superior person continuously harmonizes shifting circumstances, maintains center through change, integrates new elements into existing patterns. That Tao TM's, not adjustment to static order. That Tao TM's, creative participation in evolving order. Mental health, balanced harmony as ideal psychological state. Education, cultivating capacity to harmonize diverse perspectives. Leadership, creating conditions where distinctiveness contributes rather than fragments. Environmental ethics, harmonizing human activity with natural patterns. These arena TMT ancient abstractions. These are live questions where Confucian frameworks offer resources. Study on Zhongyang thinking, the doctrine of the mean, shows people high in Zhongyang cognitive style demonstrate better emotional regulation, more flexible problem solving, greater ability to integrate contradictory information. They TM are better at seeing both global patterns and local details. They TM more creative in finding solutions that satisfy multiple constraints. The Confucian training produces measurable cognitive benefits. This is empirical validation of ancient pedagogy. Simple ratios, octaves, fifths, fourths, sound consonant. Complex ratios sound dissonant. But too much consonance makes boring music. Composers use dissonance deliberately, resolving it into consonance, creating tension and release. The pattern creates meaning. The meaning creates emotion. Confucius talked about this 2,500 years ago. The 6 measures of sound, the 5 notes, the harmony emerging from differentiated tones. He heard it. We measure it. Same principle. Confucius articulated the general principle that science keeps rediscovering in specific domains. Harmony finds expression through ritual. Ritual without underlying harmony is empty performance. Confucius says this explicitly. Analects 3, verse 3. Ritual, they say. Is it just jade and silk? Music, they say. Is it just bells and drums? If there are TMs, no benevolence in the heart, the ritual is dead. If there are TMs, no genuine harmony, the music is noise. You must cultivate the internal state. Then the external forms carry meaning. Not one person serving another. Mutual service. Each person contributing according to capacity, receiving according to need. Organization level, establish clear structures and shared goals while encouraging diverse contributions. Do not TMT to suppress disagreement. Channel it. Societal level, build institutions that protect distinctiveness while promoting cooperation. Laws that ensure rights. Rituals that express values. Education that cultivates judgment. Political level, leaders must embody principles they promote, governed by virtue and example, not just by decree and punishment. People harmonize when they see integrity, not when they fear consequences. Prevent conditions where difference fragments. The balance shifts constantly. You must adjust constantly. That TM's the practice. That TM's the way. The tomb belonged to Liu He, grandson of Emperor Wu, who ruled for 27 days in 74 BCE before being deposed. Among thousands of artifacts, they found something remarkable. A covered mirror with painted images, 3 figures identified by inscriptions. Confucius in the center, 2 disciples on either side. Each figure has a caption containing quotes from the Analects. The mirror dates to around 60 BCE, roughly 4 centuries after Confucius, TM's death. Already TM's being visually commemorated with his sayings on luxury goods for elite tombs. But here, TM's what strikes you. The 3 figures stand distinct, not identical, different postures, different expressions, yet they form a composition, a pattern, a harmony. The artist understood, the patron understood, distinctiveness within relationship. Hier bouton. They addressed permanent problems with frameworks that worked. The harmony concept is no TM abstract philosophy. It has TMs, applied social physics. It predicts what succeeds and what fails. It explains why diverse teams outperform homogeneous ones when properly led. Why ecosystems with biodiversity survive shocks that wipe out monocultures. Why music from different cultures all use tension and resolution between notes to create emotional impact. Why the most resilient human societies maintain multiple languages, religions, ethnicities within shared political frameworks. They could teach their students. The ideas could spread. And they did. China, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Singapore, overseas Chinese communities. Confucian framework shapes millions of lives, sometimes explicitly, often unconsciously. The value placed on education, respect for learning, emphasis on family relationships, preference for negotiation over confrontation, expectation that leaders model virtue, belief that society improves through individual cultivation. These trace to Confucian roots even when people don't recognize the source. Aristotle, TM's virtue ethics, emphasizes finding mean between extremes. Hegel, or TM's dialectic, shows how thesis and antithesis synthesize into higher unity. Jazz over TM's call and response, bluegrass powers TM's 3-part harmony, rock ensembles with distinct instruments creating integrated sound, all embody the principle. Indigenous cultures worldwide have wisdom traditions emphasizing balance, diversity in relationship, individual distinctiveness serving collective purposes. Ubuntu philosophy in Africa says a person is a person through other people. Buen Vivir in Latin America talks about living well in community with nature, different vocabularies, same core insight. Harmony requires maintained difference. It was articulating it clearly enough that it became teachable, creating a tradition of textual study, commentary, debate, and application that kept refining understanding across generations, building institutional frameworks that rewarded people for studying these principles and attempting to embody them. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but systematically. That systematic transmission is what creates civilization-scale impact. Where does this leave us? You can take the Confucian harmony framework and apply it today. Your workplace? Are you creating an environment where distinct perspectives contribute, or are you enforcing conformity? Your family? Are you allowing individual growth while maintaining relationships, or are you demanding everyone fit a mold? Your community? Are you building institutions that channel diversity into cooperation, or are you fragmenting into isolated factions? Your own mind? Are you cultivating centered awareness that allows proportional response, or are you either suppressing emotions or letting them control you? The principle of harmony through distinctiveness is pattern recognition, not cultural property. You can call it systems thinking, complexity theory, network dynamics, emergent properties, whatever terminology fits your field. The underlying reality remains. Robust patterns emerge from structured diversity. Brittle patterns come from enforced uniformity. Creative tension is the source of resilience. Dead agreement is the prelude to collapse. Confucius walked through a collapsing world teaching this. He failed to stop the collapse. The Warring States period came anyway, centuries of violence. But the ideas survived the violence and shaped what came after. The Han Dynasty that unified China used Confucian principles to build administrative systems that lasted millennia. Not because they were perfect, because they were adaptive. They could incorporate new elements without losing identity. They could maintain coherence across vast space and deep time. That is harmony at scale. That is the genius Confucius pointed toward. Confucius does not give answers. He gives framework, hier Beton, harmony with distinctiveness. That Tao TM's the North Star. Every situation requires different navigation, but the direction remains constant. Build patterns that integrate difference. Reject patterns that eliminate difference. Test results empirically, adjust continuously. But he taught students. Those students taught students. The texts survived. The ideas propagated. Now, centuries after the Zhou dynasty became ancient history, after the states he traveled through disappeared, after the nobles he advised turned to dust, the framework he articulated shapes how millions of people think about right relationship, good society, meaningful life. That at TM's not failure. That Ta TM's succeeding on a timeline longer than individual lives can comprehend. You can contribute your unique perspective to collective endeavors. You can teach others to do the same. The pattern propagates, the principles transmit, the harmony builds, not through grand revolution, through accumulated daily practice across generations. Confucius in relationship with disciples, each maintaining their distinctiveness, together forming something greater than sum of parts. He, erbu tong, harmony with distinctiveness. The way Confucius understood harmony was much more genius than you imagine, because ite aast TM's, not what you thought it was. Ita TM's, not agreement. Ita aast TM's, creative tension. Ita TM's, structured diversity. Ita TM's, differentiation, enabling integration. Ditter TM's, what makes bridges stand and music worth hearing, and societies adapt and people flourish. And you can practice it starting now.